Great huggy dance. I was trying to pretend this dancing thing didn't happen. No, it really happened. You're sold out. Look, if somebody asks you to dance, you dance.
John and Ken, weekdays 2 to 6 on KFI. KFI, AM 640.
KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County. Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
Booster rollout. I'm Brian Berman from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. LA County has begun distribution of the Pfizer COVID-19 booster shot. Pharmacies around the U.S., including in Socal, are gearing up to start giving out the booster now that the CDC has approved them for older Americans and those at higher risk of infection, including frontline healthcare workers. Dairy Medical Center Dr. Dan Wazowski says it's obvious people want the booster.
I would say that our phones have been on fire with people calling and asking about the booster.
He says it's best to discuss with your doctor before getting it. Police are reviewing surveillance tapes to try and find out who shot and injured 4 people on a Metro Green Line train Friday night. Witnesses say some passengers on the train got into a fight at the Avalon station in South LA, and then the shooting happened.
He shot 3 times, and then more arguing and pushing and shoving, and then he shot 2 or 3 more times. As the one man ran towards me to get away from him, they shot him in the leg.
When the train got to the Willowbrook Rosa Parks station, the shooter or shooters ran off. An Amtrak train that runs between Seattle and Chicago has derailed. Alex Stone says it happened in northern Montana near the Canadian border.
Passengers who are posting to Twitter are showing Amtrak cars on their sides and rescue teams in the very remote area up on top of those cars, apparently trying to get people out. Numbers aren't known. It's unclear if there is anybody seriously injured. Hospitals around Montana have been told to stand by for possible victims in what's being declared a mass casualty incident.
A group of Afghans has arrived in Albania after fleeing their homeland. Albania's foreign minister says 259 children, women, and men have arrived following coordination with its partners. The ministry says they have safe shelter once again and that Albania remains committed to saving more Afghans fleeing Taliban rule in Afghanistan. The LA Rams are preparing to host the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers at SoFi Stadium. Rams QB Matthew Stafford has given props to his 6-time Super Bowl winning counterpart, Tom Brady.
I got a ton of respect for what he's done in the past and what he's doing right now. I mean, he's playing great football, about as good as I've ever seen him play.
Both teams are 2-0 so far this season. Kickoff is at 1:25 p.m. Socal Weather from KFI, low clouds and fog and then partly cloudy by the afternoon. Highs in the low 70s at the beaches, mid-70s to low 80s in Metro LA and OC, mid-70s to mid-80s in the inland valleys. There's a 20% chance of rain tomorrow in the Inland Empire, highs in the low to mid-80s. Right now it's 63 degrees in Sherman Oaks, 63 in Culver City, 64 in Brea, and 64 in Irvine. We lead local from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. I'm Brian Bruman.
Checking KFI traffic, we do have a crash in the Sepulveda Pass, 405 northbound of Mulholland Drive. That's blocking the 2 right lanes. Through Moreno Valley, 60 westbound at Redlands Boulevard, a crash there, blocking the center lane. And we have some road work in Eagle Rock, 134 westbound from Colorado Boulevard to Harvey Drive, the 3 left lanes coned off until 9 a.m. KFI in the Sky helps get you there faster. I'm Jonathan Weiss.
Another mortgage tip from Owning. Have you refinanced in the last couple of years and would like to take advantage of today's lower rates, but you don't want to start your mortgage clock all over again? Problem solved. Owning's roll-down program offers you a new loan at today's low interest rates with no closing costs and simply rolls the remaining term down for qualified borrowers. For example, say you have a 3.25% mortgage with 27 years left. Today, Owning will roll your balance and term down to a 27-year loan with a 2.625% APR. The result? A lower payment with the same number of payments left. So roll it down with Owning. No balance or term increase, just a payment decrease. That's a great mortgage tip. Call 855-5-OWNING to roll down your mortgage payment.
NMLS 2611, licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation under the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Subject to credit approval. Call 833-852-6464 for terms and conditions. Equal housing lender.
That's 855-5-OWNING or owning.com.
Try great tasting Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar, and nutrients to support immune health. Those who tried Ensure Max Protein reported feeling more energy in just 2 weeks. For more information, including consumer survey details, please visit Ensure.com.
Radio advertising can connect your business with holiday shoppers wherever they go. Use iHeart Ad Builder to create an affordable custom radio ad right on your phone. Just click, listen, approve, then hear it on the radio. Create your customized ad today at iHeartAdBuilder.com.
Deep on its way and gone. Missed out on your first opportunity to score a World Series replica ring? Now's your chance. Join us Thursday, September 30th as the Dodgers take on the Padres and bring home your own piece of history. Backed by popular demand, the first 30,000 fans in attendance will receive a 2020 World Series replica ring, courtesy of Bank of America. Get your seats today as you won't want to miss the giveaway. To purchase, visit Dodgers.com/tickets.
Hey, this is Josh Kelly, running back for the Los Angeles Chargers. Vaccinations change the game. Nearly all new COVID-19 deaths are among the unvaccinated. Don't risk it. Protect yourself by getting vaccinated. All the vaccines offer strong protection against variants like Delta, which spread faster and are easier to catch. Getting vaccinated is quick, free. It doesn't just protect you, it protects your family and community. Find a clinic near you at vaccinateall58.com. Play your best defense. Vax up.
Contractor license 1047-781.
Dad taught me to do things the right way, not the easy way. You got any brothers and sisters? 8 sisters, 7 of which are older than me.
Did they teach you anything?
They taught me that people matter a lot.
I'm talking to Ken Goodrich, owner of Gettle Air Conditioning and Plumbing.
The day I started my business, my first job was for a 90-year-old man whose air conditioner broke down on the hottest day of the year. And he didn't have any money to pay me.
That's awkward.
He was really embarrassed. So when he asked if I could take an old cello as payment, I told him I always wanted to learn to play the cello.
The what?
The cello. It's like a giant violin.
You talking about the thing standing in the corner of your office?
Yeah.
I didn't know you could play that.
I can't.
Then why'd you take it?
I took it because he would probably have died if I hadn't fixed his air conditioner. I took it because people matter.
I like working here, Kenny.
I like working here too, Zach.
Gettle. Goettl.
We'll keep you cool, but it's hard to spell.
Good Rising. The Good Risings podcast is a collection of 6 mini shows curated to give you a daily shot of inspiration, motivation, humor, relationship advice, and even astrology. You can choose to listen to one or all of the daily Good Risings offerings available on our feed. It's the perfect daily practice for anyone looking to lead a more intentional, mindful, and inspired life. Listen to the Good Risings podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Duffy Power Services, SoCal's generator experts. Dial pound 250 and say Duffy Power.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kfi Am 640, more stimulating talk. Don't forget that you can catch KFI everywhere and anytime on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Oscar Ramirez, and I'm the host of The Daily Dive, a daily news podcast covering some of the top stories making waves in the news. You can catch a new episode of The Daily Dive Monday through Friday on iHeartRadio, and it's ready for you when you wake up. Here on The Daily Dive Weekend Edition, I'll be bringing you some of the best stories I covered during the week. One of the big stories we've been following all week is immigration at the southern border. It continues to be a problem with the latest epicenter in Del Rio, Texas, as we're seeing thousands of Haitian immigrants that have set up a makeshift camp under a bridge as they wait to be processed by Border Patrol. In the meantime, the Biden administration is getting heat from both Republicans and Democrats for the worsening situation. For more on this latest immigration crisis, we'll speak to Sabrina Rodriguez, national political correspondent at Politico.
Since the beginning of the Biden administration, we've been seeing again and again in monthly statistics from Customs and Border Protection, thousands of migrants arriving at the border. And right now, Biden is still using a Trump-era public health order to be able to kick out most migrants without allowing them to actually seek asylum and actually remain in the United States. But, right now, this week, we've seen lots of headlines, and it's really dominated, cable news segments, seeing, thousands of mostly Haitian migrants arriving at the border. Given the situation in Haiti, a lot of people have kind of been calling that something like this could be happening in the coming months, in the coming weeks. The country saw devastation after both the assassination of its president a couple months ago and a recent 7.2 magnitude earthquake. So the situation in Haiti has been very bad for a while now. And then add in, the majority of the migrants that we're seeing now at the border actually have not lived in Haiti for a long time. They actually, some of them are coming from as far as Brazil and Ecuador and Chile, where they've been living since the 2010 earthquake. But, right now seeing all these Haitian migrants arriving has reignited the debate about what Biden needs to do at the border. And there's a lot of division about it. Progressives are upset with deportation. Moderates want more border security. Republicans are blaming Biden.
You made mention in your article, it's not just, the situation obviously keeps evolving. Right now we're seeing those Haitian immigrants there. Earlier it was people that were coming from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. But really we're seeing an influx from all over the place. Nicaragua figures into this, Cuba, really the whole, as you mentioned, the whole hemisphere is kind of going through this right now. So it's putting a lot of pressure on the Biden administration, and a lot of it has to do with messaging. The Biden administration wanted to project a message of a more humane immigration system, but they just haven't been able to get that in order. And in the meantime, the messaging in all these other countries is kind of like, hey, let's go right now.
The reality that we're seeing is Biden on the campaign trail really promised to undo what he considered to be, Trump's cruel and inhumane immigration policies and just the restrictive policies that we saw of the former administration. So Biden, by having that messaging, kind of came into office with these high hopes, high expectations, but implementing the vision that he has for immigration, while Democrats across the board are supportive of it, it's very difficult to do, and it's not something that gets done in a couple months or even in a year. It's a process of years to tackle some of the issues going on in Central America or to, revamp the U.S. asylum system. And some of it actually relies on Congress, which we know has, historically been unable to pass immigration reform. So a lot of the messaging is where, Biden's getting the most blame right now of him, Republicans say promoting an open border policy. In reality, the United States border is not open. He does not have an open borders policy. But people are saying, whether that's the truth, there's still that perception for many migrants. And seeing, much of Latin America has been ravaged by the pandemic, has ongoing economic crises. Different countries are in political turmoil at the moment. That really just puts kind of the perfect storm for what we're seeing.
It's not an easy solution. It never has been. And how many times have we heard comprehensive immigration reform over the years? It just doesn't happen. No, there's not enough political will to actually make something like that happen. And on the politics side, right, going into the midterms and beyond that, there's some interesting things that the polls have been saying. There was a recent Political Morning Consult poll that the majority of people found that they trust Republicans more to handle things like the border than they do Democrats. So that's a really trouble spot for the administration and for Democrats, hoping to keep power.
Democrats privately, one of their concerns, though, is a lot of them are supportive of Biden's vision, and they don't necessarily want to resort to any of the policies they saw the Trump administration do. But they want Biden to do a better job of explaining what the plan is, explaining what he's going to do, and doing a better job executing that strategy. Because they have to go back to their districts in 2022 when we know that it's going to be a competitive election, and they have to go back to their districts and justify what's going on and explain it. And, right now we're seeing, another Reuters Ipsos poll showed only 38% of U.S. adults approve of how Biden's handling immigration. That does make it tougher when Democrats are going back to their district to, support the president and sell their agenda, whether it's focused on immigration or not.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. Immigration has always been very difficult, but the optics are really bad right now, obviously, especially in Del Rio, Texas. They are flying Haitians out back to Haiti. That's received a lot of criticism. There was reports of more people coming to that area in Del Rio. So, it's going to get worse before it gets better, and that's kind of what we always hear. So that's the unfortunate part. There needs to be a lot more done on all of this. Sabrina Rodriguez, national political correspondent at Politico, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We have some good news for home buyers. The crazy housing market cooled down last month, albeit by some very modest numbers. Still, this is an improvement for many buyers that have struggled and been outbid many times. The average number of offers per house has gone down. Less inspection and appraisal contingencies are being waived, and we are seeing more price cuts. For more on why some of these prices have eased up, we'll speak to Nicole Friedman, U.S. housing reporter at the Wall Street Journal.
So the market is cooling down a bit. I think it is important, as you say, it's just modestly. So it's still a competitive market for buyers. It's still definitely a lot more demand than supply, but we're seeing some of the frenzy that we saw last winter, last spring, some of that frenzy is going away. And so part of that is just some buyers are taking a break. They haven't been able to get a home. Maybe they've been priced out of the market because prices are rising so quickly, or they're just frustrated and taking a step back. And so there is a little bit less demand out there. And then at the same time, supply is expected. It's not quite coming back yet, but expected by the end of the year, there's going to be a little bit more supply. Builders are building more homes. Some homeowners are looking at the high prices and thinking, now's maybe the time to sell. And so there's some expectation that it could get a little bit calmer in the coming months, too.
Now, Nicole, we spoke about this before. I'm looking to buy my first home throughout all of this, and it's just so frustrating, right? Especially with being outbid so much. I was one of those people that kind of took a little break from it just to wait for the market to cool down. So this news is encouraging, but let's get into some of what we're seeing there as well. So we're seeing the average number of offers decline a little bit, which is really interesting. And even one of the things we spoke about before too, people were just waiving all sorts of inspections and contingencies, appraisals, all sorts of stuff just to kind of win those bids over. The number of those is dropping as well.
So it's still, there's still multiple offers per home. So according to the latest figures, it's about 3.8 offers per home on average, but that's down from 4.5 offers per home in July. And so that's still, every house is getting more than one offer, but it's not quite as competitive. Each buyer has a slightly better chance. And the same with, as you say, people who were, waiving inspections, waiving appraisals, which is risky for a buyer, that you're giving up some of your protections, and it's a way to, win a bidding war, make your offer more competitive. And now that buyers feel that they have a little bit more leverage, a little bit more control over what's going on, they're taking back some of those protections. They're, again, requiring inspections or appraisals. So that is another sign that maybe the market is coming in slightly a little bit more into balance.
Yeah, that was one of the frustrating things, too, for me as well, because first-time home buyer, you're worried about all of those things. You don't want to drop those contingencies. Mm-hmm. And, there was tons of offers we made where they said, well, maybe drop it. We'll see what happens. So that's good news as well. Price cuts, which is interesting, too. There's a lot of houses that are going up there that are going in now with price cuts.
So we're seeing now for 4 straight months, the number of listings with a price cut has increased. And so some of that, talking to real estate agents, they say some sellers are just looking at the market and they're being way too optimistic about what price they can get for their home, because prices are rising really quickly, but there's still going to be a seller who says, maybe I'll just put a crazy number out there, see what happens. And so there's a little bit less of that going on, that a seller can just get any price they ask for their home. So there are more listings. The sellers are having to, reduce the price, adjust the price downward before it actually sells. And so that's another sign that, buyers aren't willing to just pay kind of anything they can. There isn't necessarily that mania that we were seeing earlier in the year.
You're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition on KFI AM 640 and everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation about how the housing market has cooled down slightly.
This is my business. I started it, and my hard work made it successful. We survived the last year, and things are starting to look better, but now hard work alone isn't enough. I need cash to hire some people and buy supplies.
Loan Me Business is for people like you. We can loan your business from $6,000 up to $250,000. And we understand that you don't need the cash soon. You need it now. And if your credit isn't perfect, that's okay. Apply today and you can have the money in your account tomorrow. Loan Me Business loans have longer terms, keeping your monthly payments low and manageable. You can even pay the loan off early to control your costs with no prepayment penalties.
That sounds great.
Simply go to loanmebiz.com to get started. That's loanmebiz.com or call 844-3-LOAN-ME.
Not all applicants will qualify. Approval and terms subject to credit standards. See loanme.com for details. Loans made pursuant to California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation Law License 603K061.
That's 844-3-LOAN-ME or loanmebiz.com.
We've got you covered, America. Go solar American style with Semper Solaris, and we'll cover your electric bill. Semper Solaris is your local veteran-owned solar and battery storage contractor. Add Tesla Powerwall and be ready for blackouts. We get the job done with esprit de corps and honor. Semper Solaris offers new AC systems with a lifetime warranty and new roofs with a 50-year warranty. We hire vets and give back to the community with our Semper Cares initiative. Go solar American style with Semper Solaris, and we'll cover your electric bill. 0 down, 0 interest, and 0 payments until 2023. Get the federal 26% solar and battery tax credit. $500 off for military, first responders, and healthcare workers. Call 877-211-5591. That's 877-211-5591. Or visit SemperSolaris.com. With minimum purchase of 10 panels, up to $500 paid toward electric bill. Cannot be combined with any other offers. Some restrictions apply. Call or see website for details. Expires 9/30/2021. CSLB number 978152.
Families all over California are getting their PEBT cards in the mail. Don't throw it away. It's a new benefit that helps you buy more groceries because of the pandemic. And yes, it is as good as it seems. You don't have to worry about paying it back, losing other benefits, or impacting your immigration status. And yes, if you got it, you are eligible. And yes, that means more food for your children. Learn more at ca.p-ebt.org.
You're tired of your car. You want something new, and you want it now. No problem. Roto has your back. That's R-O-D-O. Sell your old car and get into a new one right from the comfort of your couch. Use the Roto app to browse thousands of vehicles from local dealers for the best deal on the wheels you really want. Roto, the fastest, easiest way to buy or sell a car. Download the Roto app now or check out roto.com. That's RODO.com.
KFI, live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
Yes, I know. I have a calming demeanor. You know, when it's your job basically to push people beyond their comfort zones, it's good to make them feel as safe as possible. Like an open heart surgeon for your home. You'll do fine. No worries. We got this.
Home with Dean Sharp, the House Whisperer, this morning at 9 on KFI AM 640.
More stimulating talk.
This is KFI AM 640. I'm Oscar Ramirez, and you're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition. We're also seeing about 22%, this is from August, of home sales, existing home sales, were purchased in cash. A lot of people still buying in cash. You wrote another report about how there's a lot of startup firms that are helping home buyers win these bidding wars with all cash offers. How does that work?
Yeah, so that's a big trend right now, is that it can be hard for buyers with a mortgage, which is most buyers, to compete against a cash offer. A seller will often prefer a cash offer because it can close more quickly. It's less likely to fall through because of a financing issue. And so if there's a cash offer in the mix, even if it's slightly lower, sometimes the seller will still choose it above a mortgage offer. And there are a lot of cash buyers in the market right now. As you said, 22%. Some of that is investors. Some of that is maybe somebody who sold a home in California and then moves to a lower cost market, like say Texas or Arizona. And because they sold their home for a higher price in the more expensive market, they can just come in and buy a house in all cash. So we're seeing that as well. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, there are these startup companies that are helping people make a cash offer. So they'll basically, front the buyer the money to make an offer in cash, and then the buyer will go get the mortgage and kind of get the mortgage on the back end and pay the company back. But they had the upfront all cash offer to help them compete.
And in your, reporting and everything, are home buyers enjoying that kind of flexibility, doing it that way? Have they run into any snags when it comes to that?
So it really depends. I think for a lot of home buyers, it can just be an essential tool to help them win in some of these hyper-competitive markets. And so buyers sometimes say they really do appreciate having had that option of the all-cash offer because they felt like they, with a mortgage, they just were not competitive enough in multiple bid situations. But it does cost money. It's not free, right? These companies are providing a service, but they often take a fee for that service. And so it kind of is up to the buyer whether that is something that they think they can kind of price into their purchase, and they think it maybe will pay off if they can get a slightly lower offer accepted because it's all cash. Then maybe it evens out, but it depends, of course, on each buyer's situation.
Well, we'll see if the cooling of the housing market continues. I know it'll be a very welcome thing for a lot of buyers out there, so we'll monitor all of that. Nicole Friedman, U.S. housing reporter at the Wall Street Journal, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Here's a story about love in the time of COVID and how difficult it's been. For single people, many relationships started quickly and passionately and also ended just as fast during the pandemic. Finding someone during a time of loneliness made them hold on tighter. But once the vaccines came along, a lot of relationships started falling apart since you didn't have to lay low anymore. For more on these COVID-era romances, we'll speak to Diana Speckler, contributor to The Guardian.
I guess it's, in my opinion, sort of the unsung love story of the era, because I think that there's been a lot of attention paid to how COVID has affected marriages. And, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic, it seemed like things were not going well, and then later in the pandemic it said, oh, maybe things are going well, and those seem to be the stories that I was seeing over and over again, a lot of think pieces on that front. And I think everybody just kind of assumed, if they weren't single, that single people were just hanging out by themselves. But in fact, the dating apps were getting more play than ever. There was a huge uptick. And people were dating, but people didn't want to date multiple people because it was unsafe. And I think for a lot of reasons, it was appealing to many people to just hunker down in a monogamous relationship. And so people rushed in, and things got serious very quickly. Bars, restaurants, cafes, those things were all closed. So things became intimate very fast. Dates at home, meeting people's families right away because you would just join the pod, things like that. Yeah. So it would go from maybe like a first or second date to like now we kind of live together.
Right. You know, I'm lifting a line from your article. I just think it kind of makes sense so much. Many singles scrambled to find a seat, and when they did, they just sat there. You know, you found something that you really could hold on to, and then boom, I'm not letting this go because it's working for me right now. And a lot of the, whatever you can call maybe traditional rules of dating, unspoken rules of dating, kind of go out the window when things are like this. You know, you don't have that time to go out to the bars and restaurants and get to know somebody. You know, if it clicks right away, a lot of people just kept it.
That's right. And I think there is something beautiful about that, too, because a lot of those sort of rules that you learn as somebody on the dating scene are kind of gamey, kind of manipulative, and for those to go out the window isn't necessarily a bad thing. Don't get physical right away, or don't call him until he calls you. Don't text back too quickly, those kinds of things. I think those were just sort of non-issues.
So what happened, you know, a lot of these relationships started very quickly, very passionately. Some of these intimacy things, as you mentioned, you know, right, if you're giving somebody a chance, because a lot of the vaccines weren't circulating just yet, and you're going to be intimate with somebody, you know, boom, as I mentioned, you kind of hold on to that. What happened after the vaccines started happening? What happened after these relationships started getting vaccinated? Because you mentioned at least 2 or 3 of them, right away things changed. They felt like they wanted to be free. They didn't have to be shackled up anymore.
I think actually they followed the trajectory of any relationship, but just had outside influences or had other factors affecting them. So, you know, for one of my subjects, for example, who has historically had issues with intimacy and closeness, those started cropping up for him more than ever because his relationship had gotten so serious so quickly. So that was one example. Another one of my subjects, her partner, her COVID boyfriend, had donated a kidney early in the pandemic, and so he was being super, super careful because he was immunocompromised, and so their relationship was very insular, and then as soon as he got vaccinated, it was like party time.
Yeah, that was actually a funny one because he had ghosted that girl at the very beginning, and when he finally reconnected, he's like, well, I was giving a kidney to my sister, and she made him show him the scar just to kind of prove it. So that was a funny example there, but and, you know, and along with this whole thing too, right, is some of the bad habits or bad attitudes, things also you couldn't notice with maybe the more traditional dating pattern. You profiled a couple who, once things started happening out in public, he was a little more moody, socially anxious. And because those things weren't happening during the pandemic and lockdowns, she didn't get to see that.
So that was my subject, Samantha, who had such an intense COVID romance. The guy actually moved in with her, you know, and got a new job in her city and totally left his life to be with her. And it's interesting because he has had severe social anxiety probably many, many years, but she had no way of knowing that because it was just the two of them in a house. for so long.
Right.
So as soon as they got vaccinated, she's very extroverted and social and was excited to go out and connect with people and live life again. And he said, this just isn't of interest to me. So, and he left her.
You also had a COVID romance that you said ended within 2 months of vaccination. But one of the things that you made a point in the article, which I thought it makes total sense, is you spent a lot of time with this person throughout pandemic, lockdowns, all of that, and you maybe joined their pods, their friend groups. But when the relationship over, now you kind of don't have anybody to go and remember, some of those good times with, because that person is gone now. It's just an interesting aside to all of it.
And I don't know if it's necessarily that I want to reminisce about the good times, but it was a pretty dark time. And, I felt that throughout the pandemic, that was who I was most regularly commiserating with, because we were spending all our time together. And now I don't know him or the people in his life anymore. And it's just really interesting to think that this era of our lives, sort of darkest time in history, for me, there's the only people I can talk about it with are people who weren't with me. There's a little bit of a loss in that, I guess.
Yeah. And I bet there's a lot of people, just as the article suggests, right? A lot of people went through the same type of thing here. Diana Speckler, contributor to The Guardian, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me,
You're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition on KFI AM 640 and everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. I'll be back with some more top stories from the week, but first, let's get an update from the KFI newsroom.
KFI, news on the hour, on the half, and when it breaks.
I'm Brian Bruman from the KFI 24-hour newsroom. About 20 million Americans have become eligible to get a COVID-19 vaccine booster shot now that the CDC has recommended the third shot for older Americans and those with higher risk of infection. ADC's Elizabeth Schultz says 70 million people haven't even had a first dose of the vaccine.
75% of those eligible have received at least one dose of a COVID vaccine. But over the past 3 weeks, the rate of vaccinations has declined 37%.
A vaccine mandate for all school employees in New York City that was set to go into effect Monday has been temporarily blocked by a judge. K-12 students will soon be able to ride LA Metro buses and trains for free. Metro's board of directors approved a 23-month pilot program that will also be offered to community college students. Officials say 41 of the county's 87 school districts have expressed interest in getting involved with the program. The pilot program is scheduled to begin November 1st. Socal Weather from KFI brought to you by Wendy's Breakfast. Mid-70s to low 80s in Metro LA and OC. We lead local. From the KFI 24-hour newsroom, I'm Brian Berman.
Checking KFI traffic, we do have a crash in Moreno Valley on the 60 westbound at Redlands Boulevard. That is blocking the center lane. Near the Small Bit of Pass, 405 northbound at Mulholland Drive. Crash investigation there has the 2 right lanes blocked. And to West Covina on the 10 eastbound at Vincent, 2-car collision there blocking the carpool lane. KFI in the Sky helps get you there faster. I'm Jonathan Weiss.
What's the deal? $1.99 breakfast croissants. Right now at Wendy's, you can get a sausage or bacon, egg and Swiss croissant for just $1.99. Fresh cracked eggs, oven-baked bacon, grilled sausage, all on a hot and buttery flaky croissant. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary.
Here to announce the all-new, all-electric Ford F-150 Lightning is Hall of Fame running back Eric Dickerson.
I drive an F-150 myself, and I love it.
Well, F-150 Lightning's got everything you love about yours and more, like the Pro Power onboard generator that can power your tailgate or home.
Sounds like the truck of the future.
You heard it here first. Reserve your 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning today at buyfordnow.com.
And visit your Southern California Ford dealers.
And a high fly ball to left center field. It's well hit on its way, and it is gone. It's a 3-run home run. October baseball is just around the corner, and you won't want to miss your chance to be at Dodger Stadium as the defending champs look to repeat history. 2021 postseason tickets are now on sale at Dodgers.com/postseason. The Dodgers are headed for October. Nobody can beat the Dodgers. Get your tickets today and be ready to get loud.
Try great tasting Ensure Max protein with 30 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar, and nutrients to support immune health. Those who tried Ensure Max protein reported feeling more energy in just 2 weeks. For more information, including consumer survey details, please visit Ensure.com.
So the car market's come down. You need to sell your car before the end of August if you want to sell it for this crazy high money. Give me the VIN.com, America's best car buyer. Sell up your car. Give me the VIN.com. So easy you can do it and you're earning the winner.
Income-eligible renters impacted by COVID-19 can now get 100% of their past due rent and utility bills paid through the California COVID-19 Rent Relief Program. Landlords with tenants who haven't paid rent because of COVID-19 are eligible for 100% reimbursement too. The application is fast, your information is private, and you won't be asked about citizenship. Apply at housingiskey.com before eviction protections end on September 30th. Brought to you by the California Department of Housing and Community Development.
Live,
KFI AM 640.
local,
And iHeart radio station.
This is KFI AM 640, heard everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. I'm Oscar Ramirez, and you're listening to the Daily Dive Weekend Edition. Here's a story about which vaccine has a leg up on all the others. All of the available vaccines have been proven to be safe and effective against serious illness and hospitalization, but there is one that stands above the rest. A series of studies have found that the Moderna vaccine may provide the most protection when it comes to antibodies and hospitalization. Part of it may be that the vaccine delivers a larger dose than Pfizer does. For more on why Moderna has the edge, we'll speak to a Purva Mandavilli, reporter at the New York Times.
I'm glad you started out saying all of the vaccines are very effective. So I think that's number one, that they are all actually extremely good at preventing severe disease and hospitalization, which is ultimately the big goal for these vaccines. But what has emerged over the last few months is that in some of these studies, it's looking like the protection from Moderna is a little bit more durable. It's staying at higher levels over time than the protection from Pfizer. We already sort of knew that the J&J vaccine is a little bit less protected than the other two. We knew that from the clinical trials, but we thought that Pfizer and Moderna were basically the same. And what these studies are showing us is that they're almost the same, but Moderna's slightly ahead.
All right. So we've seen about 221 million doses of Pfizer go out, about 150 million doses of Moderna go out. And what we're seeing is a couple of studies that have looked into some of this stuff. But, you know, one of the things that came out, I guess the CDC had some research that was published this past week talking about at least hospitalization rates and, protecting against hospitalization. For Pfizer, that was at 91%. That fell to 77% after a 4-month period. For Moderna, there was no decline over that same period.
That's right. So, most of these studies are showing differences at those levels. So in this study, the Moderna and the Pfizer were different by about 14 or 15 points, and that's sort of what a bunch of studies have shown is that Pfizer seems to be trailing Moderna by about 10 to 15 points when it comes to severe disease and hospitalization. The differences are a little bit bigger when it comes to preventing infection. But again, severe disease is the big goal, and so that's really what we're looking at. And in fact, there was a new study that just came out today in the New England Journal of Medicine showing a similar thing. They found that 5,000 healthcare workers, they looked at Pfizer and Moderna, and they found Pfizer is about 90% and Moderna is about 96%. So, they're all showing these small differences between the two.
And then one of the other studies that we saw had to deal with antibodies and how Moderna produced, I guess, 1/3 to 1/2 more than Pfizer did. Is that something like that?
That sounds like a huge difference when you hear about it, 1/3 to 1/2, but these are not differences in how effective the vaccines are. These are just